Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Dhyananjana-salakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapata Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashadya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Kadadara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Rityandastoya Padrani Vitunuti Suhrit Satam नष्टप्रायस्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktirbhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the person of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Shri Vyasadeva, the author. Sri Krishna, the person of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the person of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Prabhu's please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Welcome to chapter 27. So today we will understand the material nature. Hari Bol. Oh, Praveen Prabhu joined also. Hare Krishna, Praveen Prabhu, Tandar Pranam, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Standard Puran, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, Shubham Prabhu also. Hare Krishna, Shubham Prabhu, Tandar Pranam, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada. So, you have arrived
Hare
just in
Krishna
time.
Prabhu, Dandotram to all of you, Jai Prabhupada.
Welcome, Prabhus. So today we will be understanding material nature.
Oh. Are we going to understand material nature today?
Yes, Prabhu. Here it says.
This material nature will never be understood by anyone in this world, to be honest.
We will try it today, Prabhu. Maybe we can finish this understanding. Let's see if it's possible.
Let us see. But anyhow, let me start reading immediately, Prabhu, because
Yes,
I may get into another call, okay, an official call,
yes, Prabhu.
okay, if my client is available shortly. So let me start off with the first verse in this chapter. Okay, this chapter is 20, chapter number is 27. Yeah, understanding the material nature. Text 1. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Prakristhopi Purusho Najyate Prakritair Avikarad Akatritvan Nirgunatvaj Jalarkavat synonyms. See, Bhagavan Uvacha, the personality of God had said, Prakriti Sthaha, residing in the material body, api, although Purushaha, the living entity, not Ajyate, is affected. Prakritaihi, of material nature, Gunaihi, by the modes, Avikarat, from being without change. Akartrivat by akartrivatitvat, by freedom from proprietorship. Nirgunatvat, from being unaffected by the qualities of material nature. Jala, on water. Arkavat, like the sun. Translation purported by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. The personality of Godhead Kapila continued. When the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reaction of the modes, although abiding in a material body, just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection on water. Purport. In the previous chapter, Lord Kapiladev has concluded that simply by beginning the discharge of devotional service, one can attain detachment and transcendental knowledge for understanding the signs of God. Here, the same principle is confirmed. A person who is detached from the modes of material nature remains just like the sun reflected on the water. When the sun is reflected on the water, the movement of the sun or the coolness or unsteadiness of the water cannot affect the sun. Similarly, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. When one engages fully in the activities of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, he becomes just like the sun reflected on the water. Although a devotee appears to be in the material world, actually he is in the transcendental world. As the reflection of the sun appears to be on the water, but is many millions of miles away from the water, so one engaged in the bhakti yoga process is nirguna or unaffected by the qualities of material nature. Avikara means without change. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that each and every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and thus his eternal position is to cooperate or to dovetail his energy with the Supreme Lord. That is his unchanging position. As soon as he changes this position or employs his energy and activities for sense gratification, it is called vikara. Similarly, even in this material body, when he practices devotional service under the direction of the spiritual master, he comes to the position which is without change because that is his natural duty. As stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, liberation means reinstatement in one's original position. The original position is one of rendering service to the Lord, Bhakti Yogena Bhaktya. When one becomes detached from material attraction and engages fully in devotional service, that is changelessness. Akartrutvat. Akartrutvat means not doing anything for sense gratification. When one does something at his own risk, there is a sense of proprietorship and therefore a reaction. But one does everything for Krishna, there is no proprietorship over the activities. By changeless and by not claiming the proprietorship of activities, one can immediately situate himself in the transcendental position in which one is not attached by the modes of material nature, just as the reflection of the sun is unaffected by the water. Text 2. Text 2. स एष यर्हि प्रकृतेर्गुणेष्वभिविसज्जते अहङ्क्रिया विमूढात्मा कर्तास्मित्यभिमन्यते. Synonyms: Saha, that very living entity; Yeshaha, this; Yarhi, when; Prakrite, of material nature; Guneshu, in the modes; Abhivishajyate, is absorbed; Ahankriya, by false ego; Vimudha, bewildered; Atma, the individual soul; Karta, the doer; Asmi, I am; Iti, thus; Abhimanyate, he thinks. Translation: when the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as the self, he becomes absorbed in material activities, and by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. Purport: actually, the conditioned soul is forced to act under the pressure of the modes of material nature. The living entity has no independence. When he is under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is free. But when under the impression that he is satisfying his senses, he engages in sense gratificatory activities. He is actually under the spell of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Prakrite Kriyamanani. One acts according to the particular modes of nature he has acquired. Guna means the qualities of nature. He is under the qualities of nature, but he falsely thinks that he is the proprietor. This false sense of proprietorship can be avoided simply by engaging oneself in devotional service under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his bona fide representative. Arjuna, in the Bhagavad Gita, was trying to accept for himself the responsibility for killing his grandfather and teacher in the fight, but he became freed from the proprietorship of action when he acted under the direction of Krishna. He fought, but he was actually freed from the reactions of fighting. Although in the beginning, when he was non-violent, unwilling to fight, the entire responsibility was upon him. That is the difference between liberation and conditioning. A conditioned soul may be very good and act in the mode of goodness, but still he is conditioned under the spell of material nature. A devotee, however, acts completely under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Thus, his actions may not appear to be of a very high quality to the common man, but the devotee has no responsibility. Text 3. Tena samsara padavim avashobhyati anirvritaha parangikaihi karma doshaihi sadasan mishra yonishu. Synonyms: Tena, by this; samsara, of repeated birth and death; padavim, the path; avashaha, helplessly; abhyati, he undergoes; anirvritaha, discontented; prasangikaihi, resulting from association with material nature; karma doshaihi, by faulty actions; sat, good; asat, bad; mishra, mixed; yonishu, in different species of life. Translation: the conditioned soul therefore transmigrates in different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with the modes of material nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work. Here, the word karma dosha means by faulty actions. This refers to any activity, good or bad, performed in this material world. They are all contaminated, faulty actions because of material association. The foolish, conditioned soul may think that he is offering charity by opening hospitals for material benefit or by opening uh, an educational institute for material education, but he does not know that all such work is also faulty because it will not give him relief from the process of transmigration from one body to another. It is clearly stated here, Sadasan Mishra Yonishu. This means that one may take birth in a very high family or he may take birth in higher planets among the demigods for his so-called pious activities in the material world. But this work is also faulty because it does not give liberation. It does not give liberation. To take birth in a nice place or a higher family does not mean that one avoids undergoing the material tribulations, the pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. A conditioned soul under the spell of material nature cannot understand that any action he performs for sense gratification is faulty and that only his activities in devotional service to the Lord can give him release from the reaction of faulty activities. Because he does not cease such faulty activities, he has to change to different bodies, some high and some low. That is called samsara padavim, which means this material world from which there is no release. One who desires material liberation has to turn his activities to devotional service. There is no other alternative. Next, 4. अत्यह्यविद्यमानेऽपि संसृतिर्न निवर्तते ध्यायतो विषयान् अस्य स्वप्ने स्वप्नेनर्थगमो यथा synonyms अर्थे real cause he certainly avidyamane not existing api although samsritihi the material existential condition na not nivartate does cease dhyayatah contemplating vishayan objects of the senses asya of the living entity swapne in a dream anartha of disadvantages agamaha arrival yatha like. Translation. Actually, a living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality to lord it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease, and just as in a dream, he is affected by all sorts of disadvantages. Purport: the example of a dream is very appropriate. Due to different mental conditions in dreams, we are put into advantageous and disadvantageous positions. Similarly, the spirit soul has nothing to do with the material nature, but because of his mentality to lord it over, he is put into the position of conditional existence. Conditional existence is described here as Dhyayato Vishayan Asya. Vishaya means an object of enjoyment. As long as one continues to think that he can enjoy material advantages, then he is in conditioned life. But as soon as he comes to his senses, he develops the knowledge that he is not the enjoyer, for the only enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 5:29. He is the beneficiary for all the results of sacrifices and penances, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. And he is the proprietor of all the three worlds, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is the actual friend of all living entities, Suhrudam Sarvabhutanam. But instead of leaving proprietorship, enjoyment, and the actual position as the friend of all living entities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we claim that we are the proprietors, the enjoyers, and the friends. We perform philanthropic work thinking that we are the friends of human society. Someone may proclaim himself to be a very good national worker, the best friend of the people and of the country, but actually he cannot be the greatest friend of everyone. The only friend is Krishna. One should try to raise the consciousness of the conditioned soul to the platform of understanding that Krishna is his actual friend. If one makes friendship with Krishna, he will never be cheated and he will get all help needed. Arousing this consciousness of the conditioned soul is the greatest service, not posing oneself as a great friend of another living entity. The power of friendship is limited. Although one claims to be a friend, he cannot be a friend unlimitedly. There is an unlimited number of there are an unlimited number of living entities and our resources are limited. Therefore, we cannot be of any real benefit to the people in general. The best service to the people in general is to awaken them to Krishna consciousness so that they may know that the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend is Krishna. Then this illusionary dream of lording it over material nature will vanish. Text 5. अत एष शनैश्चित्तम् प्रसक्तम् असतां पति भक्तियोगेन तीव्रेण विरक्त्या च नयेत् वशम्. अत एव, therefore, शनैः, gradually, chittam, mind, consciousness, prasaktam, attached, asatam, of material enjoyments, pati, on the path, bhakti yogena, by devotional service, tivrena, very serious, viraktya, without attachment, cha, and nayet, he must bring vasham, under control. Translation. It is the duty of every conditioned soul to engage his polluted consciousness, which is now attached to material enjoyment, in very serious devotional service with detachment. Thus, his mind and consciousness will be under full control. Purport: the process of liberation is very nicely explained in this verse. The cause of one's becoming conditioned by material nature is his thinking himself the enjoyer, the proprietor, or the friend of all living entities. This false thinking is a result of contemplation on sense enjoyment. When one thinks that he is the best friend to his countrymen, to society, or to humanity, and he engages in various nationalistic, philanthropic, and altruistic activities, all that is just so much concentration on sense gratification. The so-called national leader or humanist does not serve anyone. He serves his senses only. This is a fact. But the conditioned soul cannot understand this because he is bewildered by the spell of material nature. It is therefore recommended in this verse that one should engage very seriously in the devotional service of the Lord. This means that he should not think that he is the proprietor, benefactor, friend, or enjoyer. He should always be cognizant that the real enjoyer is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the basic principle of Bhakti Yoga. One must be firmly convinced of these three principles. One should always, where is it? One should always think that Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, and Krishna is the friend. Not only should he understand these principles himself, but he should try to convince others and propagate Krishna consciousness. As soon as one engages in such serious devotional service of the Lord, naturally the propensity to falsely claim lordship over material nature disappears. The detachment is called vairagya. Instead of being absorbed in so-called material lordship, one engaged in Krishna consciousness, that is control of consciousness. The yoga process necessitates controlling the senses. Yoga indriya samyama. Since these senses are always active, their activities should be engaged in devotional service. One cannot stop their activities. If one wants to artificially stop the activities of the senses, it will be a failure. Even the great yogi Vishwamitra, who was trying to control his senses by the yoga process, fell victim to the beauty of Menaka. There are many such instances. Unless one's mind and consciousness are fully engaged in devotional service, There is always the opportunity for the mind to become occupied with the desires for sense gratification. One particular point mentioned in this verse is very significant. It is said here, Prasaktam Asatam Pati. Patihi. Okay. Prasaktam Asatam Patihi. The mind is always attracted by asat, the temporary material existence, because we have been associated with material nature since time immemorial. We have become accustomed to our attachment for this temporary material nature. The mind has to be fixed at the eternal lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Savai Manah Krishna Padara Vindayoho. One has to fix the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna, then everything will be very nice. Thus, the seriousness of Bhakti Yoga is stressed in this verse. Text 6. Yamadibir Pathair Abhyasan Shraddhayanvitah Mayi Bhavena Satyena Matkatha Shravanena Cha. Synonyms: Yama Adivihi, beginning with Yama, Yoga Pathaihi, by the yoga system, Abhyasan, practicing, Shraddhaya Anvitaha, with great faith, Mai unto me, Bhavena, with devotion, Satyena, unalloyed, Mat Katha, stories about me, Shravanena, by hearing, Cha, and translation. One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. Purport: Yoga is practiced in 8 different stages: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Yama and Niyama mean practicing the controlling process by following strict regulations, and asana refers to the sitting postures. These help to raise one to the standard of faithfulness in devotional service. The practice of yoga by physical exercise is not the ultimate goal. The real end is to concentrate and to control the mind and train oneself to be situated in faithful devotional service. Bhavena or bhava is a very important factor in the practice of yoga or in any spiritual process. Bhava is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8. Buddha bhava samanvitaha. One should be absorbed in the thought of love of Krishna. When one knows that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of everything and that everything emanates from him, aham sarvasya prabhavaha, then one understands the Vedanta aphorism Janmadyasya Yatha, the original source of everything, and then he can become absorbed in bhava or the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. Rupa Goswami explains very nicely in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu how this bhava or preliminary stage of love of God is achieved. He states that one first of all has to become faithful, Shraddhayanvitaha. Faith is attained by controlling the senses, either by yoga practice, following the rules and regulations and practicing the sitting postures, or by engaging directly in bhakti yoga as recommended in the previous verse. Of the 9 different items of bhakti yoga, the first and foremost is to chant and hear about the Lord. That is also mentioned here, Matkatha Sravanena Cha. One may come to the standard of faithfulness by following the rules and regulations of the yoga system, and the same goal can be achieved simply by chanting and hearing about the transcendental activities of the Lord. The word cha is significant. Bhakti yoga is direct, and the other process is indirect. But even if the indirect process is taken, there is no success unless one comes fully to the direct process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Therefore, the word Satyena is used here. In this connection, Swami Sridhara comments that Satyena means Nishkapatena, without duplicity. The impulses are full of Duplicity. Sometimes they pretend to execute devotional service, but their ultimate idea is to become one with the Supreme. This is duplicity. Kapata. The Bhagavatam does not allow this duplicity. In the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is clearly stated there, Paramo Nirmatsaranam. Nirmatsaranam. This treatise of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is meant for those who are completely free from envy. The same point is again stressed here. Unless one is completely faithful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages himself in the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, there is no possibility for liberation. Text 7. Sarvabhuta samadvena nirvairena prasangataha brahmacharyayena maunena swadharmena baliyasa. Synonyms: Sarva, all, Bhuta, living entities, Samatvena, by seeing equally, Nirvairena, without enmity, Aprasangataha, without intimate connections, Brahmacharyena, by celibacy, Maunena, by silence, Swadharmena, by one's occupation, Baliyasa, by offering the result. Translation: in executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equally, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who seriously engages in devotional service is equal to all living entities. There are various species of living entities, but a devotee does not see the outward covering. He sees the inner soul inhabiting the body. Because each and every soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of God, he does not see any difference. That is the vision of a learned devotee. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, a devotee or a learned sage does not see any difference between a learned Brahmana, a dog, an elephant, or a cow, because he knows that the body is the outer covering only, and that the soul is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Pandita Samadarshana. A devotee has no enmity towards any living entity, but that does not mean that he mixes with everyone. That is prohibited. Aprasangataha means not to be in intimate touch with everyone. A devotee is concerned with his execution of devotional service, and he should therefore mix with devotees only in order to advance his objective. He has no business mixing with others, for although he does not see anyone as his enemy, his dealings are only with persons who engage in devotional service. A devotee should observe the vow of celibacy. Celibacy does not necessitate that one be absolutely free from sex life. Satisfaction with one's wife is permitted also under the vow of celibacy. The best policy is to avoid sex life altogether. That is preferable. Otherwise, a devotee can get married under religious principles and live peacefully with a wife. A devotee should not speak needlessly. A serious devotee has no time to speak of nonsense. He is always busy in Krishna consciousness. Whenever he speaks about Krishna. Mauna means silence. Silence does not mean that one should not speak at all, but that he should not speak of nonsense. He should be very enthusiastic in speaking about Krishna. Another important item described here is Swadharmena, or being exclusively occupied in one's eternal occupation, which is to act as the eternal servitor of the Lord, or to act in Krishna consciousness. The next word, Baliyasa, means offering the result of all activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee does not act on his personal account for sense gratification. Whatever he earns, whatever he eats, and whatever he does, he offers for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, I will stop here because I have to attend a call now. Can someone please take it forward?
Hare Krishna, the devotees, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. I can read few verses.
Yeah, 1 second, Prabhu. Swami Prabhu, if you are there, can you please take the control back? Because I cannot scroll it down further. Swami Prabhu, are you there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, please. Tejas Prabhu, please continue. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Pranjal Prabhu, are you there? I think he is. Okay, you can do it, Pranjal Prabhu, Haribol.
Can you go up, Prabhu? The verse? Yes. Text 8. यद्रच्चयोपलब्धेन सन्तुष्टो मीतभुन्मुनि विविक्त शरणः शान्तो मैत्र करुण आत्मवान्. Synonyms: यद्रच्चया, without difficulty; उपलब्धेन, with what is obtained; santushta, satisfied; mita, little; bhu, eating; muni, thoughtful; vivikta, sharana, living in a secluded place; shanta, peaceful; maitra, friendly; karuna, compassionate; atmavan, self-possessed, self-realized. Translation: For his income, a devotee should be satisfied with what he earns without great difficulty. He should not eat more than what is necessary. He should live in a secluded place and always be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self realized. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Everyone who has accepted a material body must maintain the necessities of the body by acting or earning some livelihood. A devotee should only work for such income as is absolutely necessary. He should be satisfied always with such income and should not endeavor to earn more and more simply to accumulate the unnecessary. A person in the conditioned state who has no money is always found to be working very hard to earn some with the object of lording it over material nature. Kapila Deva instructs that we should not endeavor hard for things which may come automatically without extraneous labor. The exact word used in the connection yadrichaya means that every living entity has a predestined happiness and distress in his present body. This is called the law of karma. It is not possible that simply by endeavors to accumulate more money a person will be able to do so. Otherwise, almost everyone would be on the same level of wealth. In reality, everyone is earning and acquiring according to his predestined karma. According to Bhagavatam, can you go down, Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Yes. According to Bhagavatam, conclusion, we are sometimes faced with dangerous or miserable conditions without endeavoring for them, and similarly, we may have prosperous condition without endeavoring for them. We are advised to let these things come as predestined. We should engage our valuable time in prosecuting Krishna consciousness. In other words, one should be satisfied by his natural condition. If by predestination one is put into a certain condition of life which is not very prosperous in comparison to others' position, one should not be disturbed. He should simply try to utilize his valuable time to advance in Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness does not depend on any material, prosperous, or distressed condition. It is free from the conditions imposed by material life. A very poor man can execute Krishna consciousness as effectively as a very rich man. One should therefore be very satisfied with his position as offered by the Lord. Another word here is mitabhuk. This means that one should eat only as much as necessary to maintain the body and soul together. One should not be gluttonous to satisfy the tongue. Grains, fruit, milk, and similar foods are allotted for human consumption. One should not be excessively eager to satisfy the tongue and eat that which is not meant for humanity. Particularly, a devotee should eat only prasada or food which is offered to the personality of Godhead. His position is to accept the remnants of those foodstuffs. Innocent foods, innocent foods like grains, vegetables, fruits, flowers, and milk preparations are offered to the Lord, and therefore there is no scope for offering foods which are in the modes of passion and ignorance. A devotee should not be greedy. It is also recommended that the devotee should be muni or thoughtful. He should always think of Krishna and how to render better service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be his only anxiety. As a materialist is always thoughtful about improvising his material condition, so a devotee's thought should always be engaged in improvising his condition in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he should be a muni. The next item recommended is that a devotee should live in a secluded place. Generally, a common man is interested in pounds, shillings, and pence or materialistic advancement in life, which is unnecessary for a devotee. A devotee should select a place of residence where everyone is interested in devotional service. Generally, therefore, a devotee goes to a sacred place of pilgrimage where devotees live. It is recommended that he live in a place where there is no large number of ordinary men. It is very important, Vivikta Sharana, to live in a secluded place. The next item is Shanta or peacefulness. The devotee should not be agitated. He should be satisfied with his natural income, eat only as much as he needs to keep his health, live in a secluded place, and always remain peaceful. Peace of mind is necessary for prosecuting Krishna consciousness. The next item is Maitra, friendliness. A devotee should be friendly to everyone, but his intimate friendship should be with devotees only. With others, he should be official. He may say, "Yes, sir, what you say is all right," but he is not intimate with them. A devotee should, however, have compassion for persons who are innocent, who are neither atheistic nor very much advanced in spiritual realization. A devotee should be compassionate towards them and instruct them as far as possible in making advancement in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always remain Atmavan or situated in his spiritual position. He should not forget that his main concern is to make advancement in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, and he should not ignorantly identify himself with the body or the mind. Atma means the body or the mind, but here the word Atmavan especially means that one should be self possessed. He should always remain in the pure consciousness that he is a spirit soul and not the material body or the mind. That will make him progress confidently in Krishna consciousness. Text 9. शानुबन्धे च देहेऽस्मिन् अकुर्वन् अशदाग्रहं ज्ञानेन दृष्टतत्त्वेन प्रकृते पुरुषस्य च. Synonyms: Sa anubandhe, with bodily relationships, cha and dehe, towards the body, asmin, this, kuruvan, not doing, asat agraham, bodily concept of life, jnanena, through knowledge, drishta, having seen, tatvena, the reality, prakrite, of matter, purushasya, of spirit, cha and. Translation: one's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body and thus become attracted by bodily relationships. Purport: the conditioned souls are eager to identify with the body and consider that the body is myself and that anything in relationship with the body or possessions of the body is mine. In Sanskrit, this is called aham mamata, and it is the root cause of all conditional life. A person should see things as the combination of matter and spirit. He should distinguish between the nature of matter and the nature of spirit, and his real identification should be with spirit, not with matter. By this knowledge, one should avoid the false bodily concept of life. Text 10. Nivritta buddhaya avasthano. Oh, go up, Prabhu. The verse, can you go? Nivritta buddhya avasthano duribhutesh duribhutyanyadarsana upalabdhyatmanatmanam chakshuseshwarkamatmadrik. Synonyms: nivritta, transcended; buddhi avasthanah, the stages of material consciousness; duribhut, duribhuta, far off; anya, other; darshana, concepts of life; upalabhya, having realized; atmana, by his purified intellect; atmanam, his own self; chakshusha, with his eyes; eva, as arkam, the sun; atmadrik, the self realized. Translation: one should be situated in the transcendental position, beyond the stages of material consciousness, and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky. Purport: consciousness acts in three stages under the material conception of life. When we are awake, consciousness acts in a particular way. When we are asleep, it acts in a different way. And when we are in deep sleep, consciousness acts in a still another way. To become Krishna conscious, one has to become transcendental to these three stages of consciousness. Our present consciousness should be freed from all perceptions of life. Can you go down to? From all perceptions of life other than consciousness of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Duribhutyanya Darshana, which means that when one attains perfect Krishna consciousness, he does not see anything but Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that the perfect devotee may see many movable and immovable objects, but in everything he sees that the energy of Krishna is acting. Yes. स्थावर जंगम देखे ना देखे तारा मूर्ति सर्वत्र होय निज इष्ट देव स्फूर्ति. Prabhupada was the living example for that. Anywhere Prabhupada could see, he could point out this is the energy of Krishna, how this is connected to Krishna consciousness, like that in morning walks, especially. Yeah. As soon as he remembers the energy of Krishna, he immediately remembers Krishna in his personal form. Therefore, in all his observations, he sees Krishna only. In Brahma Samhita 5.38, it is stated that Premanjana Churita. When one's eyes are smeared with love of Krishna, he always sees Krishna outside and inside. This is confirmed here. The Lord Chakshushvevarkam. As we can see the sun without a doubt, so one who is fully developed in Krishna consciousness see Krishna and his energy. By this vision, one becomes Atmadrik or self realized. When the false ego of identifying the body with the self is removed, then actual vision of life is perceivable. The senses therefore become purified. Real service of the Lord begins when the senses are purified. One does not have to stop the activities of the senses, but the false ego of identifying with the body has to be removed. Then automatically the senses become purified, and with the purified senses, one can actually discharge devotional service. Text 11. Muktalingam sadabhasham asati pratipadyate shato bandhum asatchakshu sarvanushattumadvayam. Synonyms: Muktalingam, transcendental; Sat Abhasham, manifest as reflection; Asati, in the false ego; Pratipadyate, he realizes; Shata Bandhum, the support of the material cause; Ashat Chakshu, the eye, river of the illusory energy; Sarva Anushuttam, entered into everything; Advayam, without a second. Translation: a liberated soul realizes the absolute personality of Godhead, who is transcendental and who is manifest as a reflection even in the false ego. He is the support of the material cause and he enters into everything. He is absolute, one without a second, and he is the eyes of the illusory energy. Purport: a pure devotee can see the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything materially manifested. He is present there only as a reflection, but a pure devotee can realize that in the darkness of material illusion, the only light is the Supreme Lord, who is its support. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that the background of the material manifestation is the Lord Krishna. And as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Krishna is the cause of all causes. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Supreme Lord, by his partial or plenary expansion, is present not only within this universe and each and every universe, but in every atom. Yeah. Andantarastha Paramanu Jayantarastham. So even in Paramanu, even in atom, Krishna is present as uh, which Kshiro Daksha Vishnu. Yeah. He is one without a second. The word Advayam without a second, which is used in this verse, indicates that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is represented in everything, including the atoms, he is not divided. His presence in everything is explained in the next verse. Text 12. यथा जलस्थल आभाष स्थल स्थेनावदृश्यते स्वाभाषेन तथा सूर्यो जलस्थेन दिवि स्थितः. Synonyms: yatha, as jalastha, situated on water; abhasha, a reflection; sthala, sthena, situated on the wall; avadrishte, is perceived; so abhashena, by its reflection; tatha, in that way; surya, the sun; jalasthena, situated on the water; divi, in the sky; sthita, situated. Translation: the presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky. Yeah. Purport: the example given herewith is perfect. The sun is situated in the sky, far, far away from the surface of the earth, but its reflection can be seen in the pot of water in the corner of a room. The room is dark and the sun is far away in the sky, but the sun's reflection on the water illuminates the darkness of the room. A pure devotee can realize the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything by the reflection of his energy. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that as the presence of fire can go down from. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated as that as the presence of fire is understood by heat and light, so the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is perceived everywhere by the diffusion of his different energies. It is confirmed in the Ishopanishad that the presence of the Lord is perceived everywhere by the liberated soul, just as the sunshine and the reflection can be perceived everywhere, although the sun is situated far away from the surface of the globe. Jai Hari Bol. If anyone else, devotees, wants to continue, Rishikesh Prabhu or
Yes, bro,
anyone.
I can continue. Yes, bro, I
Jai.
can continue.
Thank you so much, Hari.
Yes, text 13. Evam trivrit ahankaro bhutendriya manomai svabhase lakshitonena sad sad abhasena satyadrik. Evam thus trivrit, the threefold ahankara, false ego, bhutendriya, manamai, consisting of body, senses, and mind. Swa abhasai, by its own reflections. Lakshita is revealed anena by this Sat, Abhasena by a reflection of Brahman, Satyadrik the self-realized soul. Translation. You can scroll down, Prabhu. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses, and mind. Purport. The conditioned soul thinks I am this body. But a liberated soul thinks I am not this body, I am spirit soul. This I am is called ego or identification of the self. I am this body or everything in relationship. You can scroll down, Prabhu. To the body is mine, is called false ego. But when one is self-realized and thinks that he is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, That identification is real ego. One conception is in the darkness of the threefold qualities of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the other is in the pure state of goodness, called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva. When we say that we give up our ego, this means that we give up our false ego. But real ego is always present. When one is reflected through the material contamination of the body and the mind, in false identification, he is in the conditioned state. When he is reflected in the pure stage, he is called liberated. The identification of oneself with one's material possessions in the conditional stage must be purified, and one must identify himself in relationship with the Supreme Lord. In the conditional state, one accepts everything as an object of sense gratification, and in the liberated state, one accepts everything for the service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness, devotional service, is the actual liberated stage of a living entity. Otherwise, both accepting and rejecting on the material platform or in the voidness or impersonalism are imperfect conditions for the pure soul. By the understanding of the pure soul, called Satyadrik, one can see everything as a reflection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A concrete example can be given in this connection. A conditioned soul sees a very beautiful rose, and he thinks that this nice aromatic flower should be used for his own sense gratification. This is one kind of vision. A liberated soul, however, he sees the same flower as a reflection of the Supreme Lord. He thinks this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized in his service. These are two kinds of vision. The conditioned soul sees the flower for his own enjoyment, and the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in the service of the Lord. In the same way, one can see the reflection of the Supreme Lord in his own senses, mind, and body, in everything. With that correct vision, one can engage everything in the service of the Lord. It is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one who has engaged everything, his vital energy, his wealth, his intelligence, and his words, in the service of the Lord, or who desires to engage all these in the service of the Lord, no matter how he is situated, is to be considered a liberated soul, or Satyadrik. Such a man has understood things as they are. Text 14. भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियमानो बुद्ध्यादिष्वय निद्रय लीनेष्व असति यस्तत्र विनिद्रो निरङ्क्रिय Bhuta, the material elements, Sukshma, the objects of enjoyment, Indriya, the material senses, Mana, mind, Buddhi, intelligence, Adishu, and so on, Iha, here, Nidraya, asleep, Lineshu, merged, Asati, in the unmanifest, Yahu Tatra there Vinitra awake Nirahankar Kriya freed from false ego. Translation. Although he appears to be merged in the five material elements, the objects of material enjoyment, the material senses, and the material mind, and intelligence, a devotee is understood to be awake and to be freed from the false ego. Purport. The explanation of by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of how a person can be liberated even in this body is more elaborately explained in this verse. The living entity who has become Satyadrik, who realizes his position in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, may remain apparently merged in the five elements of matter, the five material sense objects, the ten senses, and the mind and the intelligence. But is considered to be awake and to be freed from the reaction of false ego. Here, the word Lina is very significant. The Mayavadi philosophers recommend merging in the impersonal effulgence of Brahman, that is their ultimate goal or destination. That merging is also mentioned here. But in spite of merging, one can keep his individuality. The example is given by Jiva Goswami is that a green bird who enters a green tree appears to be merged appears to merge in the color of greenness, but actually the bird does not lose its individuality. Similarly, a living entity merged either in the material nature or in the spiritual nature does not give up his individuality. Real individuality is to understand oneself to be the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. This information is received from the mouth of the Lord Chaitanya. He said clearly upon the inquiry of Sanatan Goswami that a living entity is the servitor of Krishna eternally. Krishna also confirms in Bhagavad Gita that the living entity is eternally for his part and parcel. The part and parcel is meant to serve the whole. This is individuality. It is so even in this material existence when a living entity apparently merges in matter. His gross body is made up of five elements. You can scroll down, Prabhu. His subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, false ego, and up a little bit up, Prabhu. Contaminated consciousness, and he has five active senses and five knowledge acquiring senses. In this way, he merges in matter. But when, while immersed in the 24 elements of matter, he can keep his individuality as the eternal servitor of the Lord. Either in the spiritual nature or in the material nature, such a servitor is to be considered a liberated soul. That is the explanation of the authorities, and it is confirmed in this verse. Text 15. मन्यमनस्तदात्मानम् अनस्तो नस्तवन्मृष नस्ते हङ्करणे दृष्ट नस्तवित्त इवातुर मन्य मन्यमान thinking tada then atmanam himself anastha although not lost nasat vat as lost brisha falsely naste ahamkarane because of the disappearance of the ego drishta the seer nasta vittai one who has lost his fortune eva like Atura mistrust. Translation. Although the living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer, still, because of the disappearance of ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. Purport. Only in ignorance does a living entity think that he is lost. If by attainment of knowledge he comes to the real position of his eternal existence, then he knows that he is not lost. An appropriate example is mentioned herein. Nashtavitta Ivatura. A person who has lost a great sum of money may think that he is lost, but actually he is not lost. Not only his money is lost, but due to his absorption in the money or identification with the money, he thinks that he is lost. Similarly, when we falsely identify with matter as a field of activities, we think we think that we are lost, although we are not. As soon as a person is awakened to the pure knowledge of understanding that he is eternal servitor of the Lord, his own real position is revived. A living entity can never be lost. When one forgets his identity in deep sleep, he becomes absorbed in dreams, and he may think himself a different person or may think himself lost. But actually, his identity is intact. This concept of being lost is due to false ego, and it continues as long as one is not awakened to the sense of his existence as an eternal servitor of the Lord. The Mayavadi philosophers' concept of becoming one with the Supreme Lord is another symptom of being lost in false ego. One may falsely claim that he is the Supreme Lord, but actually he is not. This is the last snare of Maya's influence upon the living entity. To think oneself equal with the Supreme Lord or to think oneself to be the Supreme Lord himself is also due to false ego. Text 16. एवं प्रत्यवयवृष्यस्व आत्मानं प्रतिपद्यते सहङ्करस्य द्रव्यस्य यो वस्थनम् अनुग्रह एवं thus pratyavayamrishya. After understanding also that person, Atmanam himself, Pratipadyate, he realizes. So Ahankara is accepted under false ego. Dravyasya of the situation. Yahu avasthanam. Krishna is Anugraha, the manifested. Translation. When by mature understanding one can realize his individuality, then the situation he accepts under false ego becomes manifest to him. Purport. The Mayavadi philosopher's position is that at the ultimate issue, the individual is lost. Everything becomes one and there is no distinction between the knower, the knowable, and the knowledge. But by minute analysis, we can see that we can see that this is not correct. Individuality is never lost, even when one thinks that there are that the three different principles, namely the knower, the knowable, and knowledge, are amalgamated or merged into one. The very concept that the three merge into one is another form of knowledge, and since the perceiver of the knowledge still exists, how can one say that the knower, knowledge, and knowable have become one? The individual soul who is perceiving this knowledge still remains an individual, both in material existence and in spiritual existence. The individuality continues. The only difference is in the quality of identity. In the material identity, and the material identity, the false ego acts, and because of false identification, one takes things to be different from what they actually are. That is the basic principle of conditional life. Similarly, when the false ego is purified, one takes everything in the right perspective. That is the state of liberation. It is stated in the Ishopanishad that everything belongs to the Lord. Ishavasam idam sarvam. Everything exists on the energy of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Because everything is produced of his energy and exists on his energy, the energy is not different from him. But still the Lord declares, I am not there. When one clearly understands one's constitutional position, everything becomes manifest. False egoistic acceptance of things conditions one, whereas acceptance of things as they are makes one liberated. The example given in the previous verse is applicable here. Due to absorption of one's identity in his money, when the money is lost, he thinks that he is also lost. But actually, he is not identical with the money, nor does the money belong to him. When the actual situation is revealed, we understand that the money does not belong to any individual person or living entity, nor is it produced by man. Ultimately, the money is the property of the Supreme Lord, and there is no question of it being lost. But as long as one falsely thinks I am the enjoyer or I am the Lord, this concept of life continues and one remains conditioned. As soon as this false ego continues, and one remains conditioned. As soon as this false ego is eliminated, one is liberated. As confirmed in the Bhagavatam, situation in one's real constitutional position is called mukti or liberation.
Okay, one more, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. De Devahutiruvacha Purusham Prakrite Brahman Na Vimuchati Karhichit Anyonya Pasrayatya. Please scroll down, Prabhu. नित्या नित्यात्वन्यो प्रभो Devahuti Vacha Devahuti said Purusham, the spirit, soul, Prakriti, material nature, Brahman, O Brahmana, not Vimuchanti. Vimun Shakti does not does release Karhichit at any time Anyonya to one another Apashrayatvat from attraction Cha and Nityavat from eternity Anyo of them both. Prabhu, O my Lord, translation. Sri Devahuti inquired, my dear Brahmana, does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul since one is attracted to the other eternally? How is their separation possible? Purport. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila, here makes her first inquiry. Although one may understand that spirit, soul, and matter are different, their actual separation is not possible either by philosophical speculation or by proper understanding. The spirit soul is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, and the matter end is the external potency of the Lord. The two eternal potencies have somehow or other been combined, and since it is so difficult to separate one from the other, how is it possible for the individual soul to become liberated? By practical experience, one can see that when the soul is separated from the body has no real existence. And when the body is separated from the soul, one cannot perceive the existence of the soul. As long as the soul and the body are combined, we can understand that there is life. But when they are separated, there is no manifested existence of the body or the soul. This question asked by Devotee of Kapila Dev is more or less implied by the philosophy of voidism. The voidist says that the voidist says that The consciousness is a product of combination of matter, and that as soon as the consciousness is gone, the material combination dissolves, and therefore is ultimately nothing but voidness. This absence of consciousness is called nirvana in Mayavada philosophy.
Haribol. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Now let's go to Sikshastakam prayers. Thank you, Pranjal Prabhu and Praveen Prabhu for scrolling also. चेतोदर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावधूजीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुदिवर्तनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निजतरुशक्तिस्तत्रापिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काल एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवमेतेषां याजनीनानुरागः प्रीणादपि सुनिचेन तरुरपि सहिष्णुना अमानेन मानदेन कीर्तनीया सुधा हरि नदनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीशकामये मम जन्मनो जन्मनीश्वरे भवतात् भक्तिरहितकी त्वयि हैनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पतितं मां विस्मये भवं बुधो कृपया त्वत्पादपङ्कजस्थिततुलीसुदेशं विचिन्तया नयनं गलतश्रुधारया वदनं गदगदोरुधया पुलकेर्निचितं वपुपदा तव नाम गणे भविष्यति युगायितं निविश्येन चक्षुषा प्रावृष्टायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहे आश्लेषभापादरतां प्रविष्टवाम् अदर्शनां मर्मातां करोतु वा यथा सदा वावददातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव न परः श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय श्री श्री शिक्षाष्टकम की जय
Haribol. Jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions to you living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental images. You have not even hidden fast truths for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by chanting your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
Almighty Lord, I have no desire to offer network, nor do I desire beautiful movement, nor do I want any number of followers. I am given to cosmetics of myself, but of the God.
O son of Maharashnanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. If somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death, please pick me up from this ocean of birth and death, ocean of death, and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and when will the hairs of my body stand on and at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remove so even if he handles me roughly and his embrace makes me broken and by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally.
Haribol, Shri Siksastakam ki jai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. बहुजन्म करे आदि श्रवण कीर्तन तबुतान पाए Krishna Pade Premadan. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name from many birds, he will not get the love of God. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. The 10 offenses against the holy name are as follows. The first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Second offense is to consider the names of living gods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Third offense is to disobey the orders of spiritual master or to think of him as an ordinary person.
Fourth offense, to blaspheme the Vedic literature, Holy Church, and persons to the Vedic version. What did
Fifth
you read?
offense is no. Fifth offense, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. Sixth offense, to give some
Yes,
yes,
Prabhu.
Sixth offense, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord.
Seventh offense, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord.
Eighth offense, to consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities karma kanda.
Ninth offense, to instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
Tenth offense is to not have complete faith in chanting the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding some instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be attentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our respectful obeisance to all Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill desired trees of everyone just like desired trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen and conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarubhishya kripasindhubhasya. Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namo.
Namaha. And the Gaudiya Vaishnavinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much for association, Prabhu. Thank you, Praveen Prabhu, for scrolling and reading, and Pranjal Prabhu also for scrolling. And everyone who read, very nice. See you again tomorrow. Hari Bol, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai.